Hello again, Covenant. Thank you for returning to your places. And we will proceed now. The moderator recognizes Steve Klimkowski, Chief Financial Officer, for agenda item number 24.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, Covenant Church. I'm grateful for this opportunity to be with you today. I want to begin by sharing with you a question that came up in a recent Bible study meeting. The leader asked the group what each of them would do if they knew they only had 30 minutes left before the great judgment day. One man raised his hand and said, "I would run outside and preach the gospel to anyone who has not yet accepted Christ." The woman next to him said, "I would give my remaining 30 minutes to prayer, preparing to meet God and praying for lost souls." The oldest man in the group stood up and said, "I would jump in my car and find the nearest church budget meeting. That's what I'd do." Well, that resulted in a lot of puzzled looks. But then the group leader said, "Oh, I get it. You want to help them to stop focusing on church business and instead focus on God." "Nope," the old man said. "I'm just trying to find the longest 30 minutes of my life." I know that for some of you, hopefully not all of you, time actually seems to slow down during church business presentations. However, in many ways, our financial reports represent the best consolidated view of all we do together. You will find some of that reporting in your delegate packet. There we include our most recent final consolidated audit, as well as a draft of the minister's pension plan audit. That audit is always in draft version at this time of year because we won't have final reports from some of our investment managers until later this summer. In this session this morning, I will provide you with a look back at our financial results for fiscal year 2020, which ended on September 30th. And this afternoon, I will bring before you the budget recommendation for fiscal year 2022. We bring all this data before you because we owe you transparency and accountability around your faithful support. We want to show you where your giving goes and what those funds make possible. Church giving and individual donor support make up over 60% of our denominational budget. Without it, without you, we can do very little. So first, thank you for your ongoing support of our shared mission. As we begin this look back at the previous fiscal year, I want to touch on the guiding principles that inform our stewardship. We seek to serve our diverse ministry needs while ensuring sustainability. My predecessor, Paul Hawkinson, used to say that our financial leadership team often stands in the intersection of ministry ambition and economic reality. So we weigh our financial decision-making against the stewardship of the whole. We want to increase unrestricted mission reserves. We have to maintain a margin to protect against future downturns, to invest in new mission opportunities, and to be able to absorb any escalating risks from our affiliates, our camps, and our churches. We promote stewardship across the entire Covenant affiliate sphere. We work to root out redundancies and inefficiencies. Where we can, we want to coordinate efforts and share support services and expertise. We constantly enhance the resourcing available to our local churches. We want to provide you with adequate tools for your flourishing. These tools include online giving subsidies, retirement and health benefits, affiliate resources, and even loan guarantees. Finally, we want to maximize our investment into mission and ministry. We do the best we can to provide the optimum level of infrastructure in support of our core ministries. It is especially important to us that as much of your giving as possible goes directly into mission. But even so, mission is not possible without the infrastructure that supports it. So we bring these guiding stewardship principles into our oversight and management of the covenant's finances and resources. Let's take a look back now at fiscal year 2020. I imagine that 2020 was a very challenging year for all of us. It certainly served to remind me that our annual budget, no matter how rigorously and thoughtfully constructed, is still just a best guess about our near-term financial future. At this time last year, we had grave concerns about the potential impact of the pandemic on our finances. Historical data indicated we would experience a sizable downturn in giving, lasting upwards of 2 years. Accordingly, we downgraded our 2020 outlook to a projected budget shortfall of $2 million, with a worst-case shortfall projection of $2.75 million. However, here we are, 1 year later, and I'm pleased to report that we emerged stronger than we had dared hope. Total undesignated giving, which is the lifeblood of our operating budget, was down less than 1% versus the previous year. Expenses totaled just under $12 million, a 7.6% decline from 2019. Although no budget deficit is acceptable, our shortfall of $1.71 million was more modest than projections. And we were grateful to receive a $1.78 million CARES Act PPP loan that wholly covered our budget shortfall. We anticipate that loan will be fully forgiven. There are several reasons for the better outcome. First, the capital markets were unexpectedly resilient. After its initial plunge, the U.S. stock market rallied to new all-time highs by summer's end. That upsurge bolstered our invested reserves as well as our retirement plans. Secondly, despite the adversity and uncertainty, our churches and individual donors were amazing. They faithfully stepped up and supported the denomination in its time of need. We had anticipated a double-digit downturn in our giving. Instead, our actual support nearly matched the previous year's total. Finally, our denominational team tightened their belts and reduced our total spend by nearly $1 million versus the previous year. All these factors combined to produce a final result that was surprisingly close to the best guess or budget that was approved at Gather 19. In this next slide, I break down the year's performance in more detail. First, I need to note that in March of 2020, we changed our fiscal year end from January 31 to September 30. This resulted in 2020 being shortened to an 8-month fiscal year as we transitioned to the new reporting period. Unfortunately, this makes historical comparisons difficult. To provide some basis for comparison, we created pro forma 2019 results. So in this slide, we detail the actual dollars of investment we made into each mission priority. Our investment in Start and Strengthen churches declined by over 13% due to the fall off in new church plant activity. Make and Deepen Disciples and Develop Leaders saw double-digit declines in their spend as their relational ministries were particularly impacted by the lockdown. Our investment in Love Mercy, Do Justice was nearly flat over the previous year as the team operated with a full staff versus 2019. Serve Globally's budget increased by 2% due to a modest expansion in our global personnel team. Our communication spend declined by 9.6% due to several budgeted but unfilled staff positions, while shared services, which is every support service including IT, operations, HR, advancement, finance, legal, risk management, and governance, increased by 1.8%. The significant decline in the other category is primarily the result of reduced contributions to our lay pension plan, as the plan is now fully funded. So what this all resulted in was a 2020 total mission investment of $11,986,710, a total spend that was 7.6% lower than the previous year. This next slide components of 2020 mission investment is helpful in understanding some of the perceived investment disparity between our 5 mission priorities. What we have done in this slide is to break down our mission investment into its 2 parts, core mission and external appropriations. External appropriations are dollars that fund activities that are so integral to the work of the church that we include them in our budget, even though these dollars go outside. For example, $1.54 million in appropriations went out in support of church planting activities, direct investment into our local churches, but it is included in the Start and Strengthen Churches budget. Similarly, in Serve Globally, just over $3 million went out in support of the mission work of our global personnel. And our operating budget provided over $666,000 in support to North Park University. As I mentioned earlier, these numbers reflect only an 8-month fiscal year. We continue to support the mission of North Park University at a level of $1 million annually. So how do we finance all this investment in 2020? Where do our sources of income come from? Well, our largest source of income is church giving, and we are very grateful to you, all of you, for that. Church giving represents nearly 50% of our budget income at $5.09 million. Donor giving from so many wonderfully generous individuals amounted to $949,000, or 9.2% of our budget income. The $2.78 million in affiliate fees represents the net fee activity from the affiliate enterprises that we work with, including Covenant Ministries of Benevolence, Covenant Living Communities, National Covenant Properties, Covenant World Relief, and Paul Carlson Partners. Our Draw on Living Legacy funds, the funds we recycle from our closed churches into our new church plants, declined by nearly 25%, reflecting the reduced church planting activity. Bequest income amounted to $535,000. Bequest income derives from the estate gift activity of generous covenant people. Now, when we get bequest gifts, we don't pull them directly into the budget because we can't predict when and how much. Instead, we maintain a bequest reserve fund, and we take an annual draw of 10% from the fund in support of the budget. Income from communication sales declined nearly 55% due to the impact of the lockdown and the cancellation of covenant events. So in total, our mission income, or mission provision, equaled nearly $10.28 million, down 2.7% over the previous year. As I noted earlier, our total mission provision fell $1.7 million short of our total mission investment. But that deficit was $700,000 better than the previous year's shortfall of $2.4 million. And let's talk about that for a moment. In the write-up I included in your delegate notebook, I noted our efforts to reduce the budget's reliance on reserve withdrawals. Frankly, our total budget has been operating at a deficit for approximately 5 years now. Late in 2019, the finance team, in concert with the finance committee, began serious work to reduce that annual shortfall. The initial fruit of our endeavors was the 2021 budget plan, a budget that significantly downsized our total spend and reduced our budget deficit from $2.6 million in 2019 to just under $600,000. To further our work in this regard, we brought a resolution to the executive board this past fall that requires the ECC to balance its budget by fiscal year 2024. The board approved that action, and we fully expect to achieve that mandate. Other important metrics we like to report on: the Bethany Benefits Service health premium increased by 5% in 2020, similar to the average market increase, but a bit higher than our average increase of 3.4% over the previous decade. We do everything we can to make the plan as affordable as possible, but we must also protect the plan's economic soundness so that we can continue to care for our members long into the future. We introduced 2 new tiers of service last year, an employee plus spouse tier and an employee plus children tier. These tiers were added in response to your feedback, and we hope that it helps to better serve you and your churches in their plan needs. And just to clear up any confusion, Bethany Benefit Service is not a third-party vendor. It's us, the Covenant. We administer the plan, and we insure this plan. And I hope you are all aware of how truly excellent the Bethany Medical Plan is, and that it's available to you, to your churches, not only for your pastors, but for your lay staff as well. And if in an attempt to save a bit of money, your church is not a participant in the plan, please reconsider that. The plan may cost a bit more in premiums, but the coverage it provides is truly wonderful. It is a platinum-rated plan, and you have no idea of the distress we see when pastors and lay staff face a health crisis without solid medical coverage. The Covenant Pension Plan is solidly funded with a current funded status of over 105% under fair actuarial assumptions. The plan was closed to new participants as of January 1st of 2020. Going forward, newly credentialed pastors will build their retirement savings through our 403b9 plan with Guidestone. We are gaining very good traction in the Guidestone plan. There are now 172 churches enrolled, and contributions to the plan totaled $3.7 million in 2020. Finally, we've included in your delegate packet a copy of the final consolidated audit for the fiscal year ended January 31st, 2020. We received a clean, unqualified audit opinion with no required adjustments, and our restricted reserves remain steady. Normally, we would have delivered the final 2020 audit to this meeting, but the pandemic greatly slowed our accounting and audit processes. I want to assure you that the audit is not being held up due to any problems or issues. It has simply been delayed by remote working logistics. We plan to deliver both the 2020 and the 2021 audits to next gather. By the way, in the notes section of the audit, you will see that we own property and equipment that was valued at $9.7 million. Most of that value is tied up in our headquarters building at 8303 West Higgins Road in Chicago. As you may be aware, we put the building up for sale last summer, and as of today, it remains on the market. The executive board created a committee called the Location Advisory Committee that is overseeing this endeavor. There are 2 primary reasons we believe it is the right time to sell the building. One is that we have a vacancy issue. With a good portion of our mission teams working remotely or as field staff, in tandem with Covenant Trust Company having left the building for new office space in downtown Chicago, our building is now more than half empty. Moreover, we believe that the equity we have tied up in the building is much better invested in mission than it is in bricks and mortar. Going forward, we remain adamant about Christ-centered stewardship. We are particularly focused on enhancing financial accountability and risk management as we strive for a most faithful allocation of God's provision across the entire covenant sphere. Our goal is to ensure the long-term sustainability of our finances in support of our mission to join God in God's mission to see more disciples among more populations in a more caring and just world. If we are to mission well, we must steward well. And that, Mr. Moderator, concludes my comments.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much, Steve. Again, reaching for the wrong thing. There is a question for you. It's a question of clarification, and it comes to us from Delegate Will Davidson. And what is the current balance in the reserve account? Is there a number there that that we can reference
Sure.
in the report?
Reserve is kind of a broad question in an organization that has both restricted reserves and unrestricted reserves. What we consider to be funds available for general mission is just over $7 million in reserves. The remainder is restricted in some capacity.
Thank you very